to our families, students, staff, and the greater community to conduct our business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect for fellow board members, staff, and citizens. The board asks its citizens to conduct themselves with the same courtesy towards all staff members and to each other. As per board policy, Robert's Rules of Order will be used to conduct meetings, and a moment of silence will be observed before we begin our business. Public comment will be held after we adopt the agenda this evening. Tonight, I want to begin this time we're sharing by acknowledging that Orange County Schools educates our students on the traditional land of the Occaneechi Band of the Saponi Nation. Hillsborough and its surrounding areas have a difficult history of colonization, slavery, segregation, and is still grappling with the detrimental effects of racism. I want to recognize that residents of this land over time have experienced human atrocities, destructive hurricanes and floods, the flu pandemic of 1918, and many periods of civil unrest. I invite everyone to lean into our humanity as we face the challenges of the coming school year. This crisis transcends the school district and will require new solutions, generosity of spirit, and deep concern for our neighbors. As we consider our individual roles in helping to meet the needs of every student and family in our district, we'll have a moment of silence before we begin our work. Thank you. Dr. Felder, I will now turn it over to you for the recognitions for this evening.
Good evening again, Board Chairperson, Mrs. McKenzie, Board Vice Chair, Mrs. Stevens, and to the entire board. I am thrilled tonight to recognize a group of staff who were instrumental in providing summer learning and summer meals this summer. And so I want to recognize all of the staff involved with leading our summer program. We had approximately 80 staff, so too many names to read off tonight, but they certainly know who they are, and I know who they are, and want to thank each.
Dr. Felder, you're cutting out on us.
Support to our students. Approximately 300 students participated in summer school this summer, and we are looking at data now that is indicating that there was a positive effect, and look forward to bringing that information back to the board at a future date. But also just want to recognize all the staff that were involved in ensuring that our students had meals this summer. And so, and that took a whole team of folks to ensure that meals were provided at our various meal distribution sites across the district, as well as the continuation of the purchasing of and the boxing together of and delivery of food to our families. So again, just a huge effort on behalf of the Orange County school staff. And I just want to personally applaud them for all of their efforts this summer in taking care of our students, both academically, so emotionally, and as well as meeting a basic need that they have to ensure that they were fed nutritious meals this summer. So thank you, team.
I just want to echo the board's gratitude and thanks for all of the hard work that went into that this summer.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And do I have a motion from the board to adopt tonight's agenda?
I would like to pull the minutes from consent agenda.
Okay. We can do that. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the minutes pulled, and we can add those as the first item after the consent agenda before the swim for Charlie presentation?
What is
So
this,
moved.
all of the minutes?
Yes. Yes, it's a generic question that hopefully our attorney can answer very quickly.
Okay, so do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Have a motion from Mr. Atherton.
Second.
I have a second from Ms. Hauser. Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
Ms. Smiley,
Yes.
Ms. Moore.
Yes.
I will vote yes. Ms. Hauser,
Yes.
Ms. Doyle,
Yes.
Mr. Atherton.
Yes.
Okay, so we have approved our agenda with the minutes pulled off of consent and added directly after that. So now, Ms. Stowe, are you on? Could you confirm if we have any public speakers this evening?
My apologies. Yes, is my understanding we have one.
Okay, so I will read a brief public charge and then I'll have you call on them and unmute as you and Mr. Schofield worked out. We will now have a time for public comment. Once a speaker is recognized, they will be unmuted and have 3 minutes to speak. If a speaker has indicated that they would like to use interpretation services, Ms. Blefko is on standby and time will be added to the speaker's 3 minutes for the interpretation. The board will not have any discussion with speakers and comments may not address any specific confidential student or personnel matters. Ms. Stowe, will you please recognize and unmute our speaker?
Okay,
Still, you're muted.
oh, sorry. All right, my apologies. Joe, do you mind switching my screen share, please? Okay, we have one speaker, with Kevin Keeling.
Mr. Keeling, are you unmuted? Are you able to confirm, Ms. Stowe?
Joe is working with me on that. Hold on one second.
Okay.
I don't see him on the list of attendees.
He was on. Did we lose him?
Oops. We can circle back. He's not on the list right now.
Okay, unfortunately, it seems that Mr. Keeling is not on here anymore. If we can come back to him, if we can get him back on the line, we can try to come back to this. So, Mr. Keeling, also, if you are no longer on but want to email comments to the board, we would be glad to read them and respond to you. So we haven't had board comments in quite a while, but I wanted to include them tonight in case board members have anything they'd like to share with the community. Tonight and moving forward, I'll ask board members to feel welcome to share any items they would like to see on our future agendas. So tonight I will call on Mr. Atherton. If you have any public comment, board comment you would like to make.
In the interest of time, but I don't, but thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Ms. Doyle?
I also don't, but thank you, Ms. McKenzie.
Ms. Hauser?
No comments. Thank you for the opportunity.
Ms. Moore?
Yes, I would like to know if our exceptional children's department is working on a plan to improve virtual learning for our students with IEPs. And if so, if we could see that plan. I believe it might be helpful to have strategies for parental involvement synchronous and asynchronous activities that can possibly help our students with IEPs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Ms. Smiley?
I just have a couple of things. One of the things typically we mention in board comment are events we attended and things like that. So in terms of events, since our last board report, I attended a convening of the Freedom Hill Coalition, which was organized by CREED, the Center for Racial Equity and Education in North Carolina, a webinar led by TMTP and Achievement Network on strategies for accelerating learning as we return to school. I also attended the first meeting of the Metrics Task Force, where a representative, we'll hear more about that later tonight. I just want to thank the team for putting together a really broad range of perspectives on that task force. I was glad to see that students were included. I started and am hopefully in the next 2 months going to wrap up a certificate in education finance from Georgetown. Because I know that school is about to start, I just want to thank everyone who has been working nonstop to figure out how to make this year successful. As far as I know, we have never in the history of this school system had to prepare with this many unknowns, this many puzzle pieces to fit together, or this many new things to learn and start doing at the same time. And I'm really proud of all that's been accomplished so far. I am sure the start of any school year has bumps in the road. I'm sure that there will be extra bumps this year, but I'm just very grateful to everybody who's been working so hard and really looking forward to a school year where our students can thrive and learn and have a great year.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley. Ms. Stevens?
Yeah, well, very little. Thank you for the opportunity, Madam Chair, for us to have comments. Since our last meeting, I attended the UNC hospital leadership team meeting. And thank you. Thank you for giving us this opportunity, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Tonight, all I wanted to do is simply say thank you to the community and to our staff and our teachers. I've truly enjoyed the rich collaboration with you all over the past several weeks via emails, phone calls, virtual office hours. I hope that everyone in the district has a great week preparing for our first day of school next week. And the board is here if we can support any of you in any way. So now I will turn it over to Dr. Felder for comments from the superintendent.
Well, thank you, Mrs. McKenzie. And so I too want to echo all of the thanks to the staff in particular for all of their efforts over the summer to ensure that we are as prepared as we can be for the first day of school on August 17th. I think you hit the nail on the head, Mrs. Smiley, when you say it's been nonstop, lots of puzzle pieces, lots of moving parts, everything new. Challenges, lots of unknowns, but I am so very proud of the Orange County Schools team. They have been working tremendously hard, doing a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of creating, developing, researching, pulling together, pulling apart, and just doing what they need to do for our children. And that's what drives the work. We are all committed to ensuring that our children have a successful school year. And we refuse to allow a pandemic to get in the way of that. And so I just want to say kudos to the team and I know thank you just doesn't seem like enough, but just know that your efforts and all of your hard work, your sleepless nights, again, just your tremendous efforts have been noted, duly noted, and are very much appreciated, and will go a long way to benefit our students this year. So thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Felder. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda aside from the minutes, which we will address directly afterwards?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Smiley and a second from Mr. Atherton. Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Smiley?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
I vote yes. Ms. Hauser?
Yes.
Ms. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Atherton.
Yes.
The consent agenda, aside from minutes, has been approved. Now I'll turn it over to Mr. Atherton for your question about the minutes.
Sure. So the question is just for the attorney real quick. I sent an email earlier today asking about, we're referencing now to view the discussions in video on YouTube. And I'm curious if that is now, will that make us be required to have a retention of these videos and a backup copy of them on our servers in case something happens, or just want to understand what that means for us having to do retention on the videos if we're referring to them in our minutes now. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And Ms. Lee did ask me about that practice and for advice on whether it was permissible. What she is doing is still recording the required elements of the minutes, what actions were taken and what the votes were, but providing less detail and instead referring viewers to the video. So the minutes are still legally sufficient. For a board that uses the video as its minutes, you have to maintain those videos indefinitely because they are your minutes, and so you have to maintain them permanently. These minutes are, you're still keeping minutes. They are just less detailed, but still contain the required elements. But I certainly would recommend, if we're referencing the videos, that we do maintain those videos somewhere other than on the cloud server or YouTube, wherever they are maintained now. And I don't have any reason to think we're not, but.
I don't know that. Well, this came up originally when we talked about the retention of it. And at the time we weren't referring to it, and therefore we weren't required to put a retention policy in place to say, yes, we're going to back them up. So that's why I'm bringing it up. So I just wanted to confirm that we probably are, what you're saying is we do need to do that. So that's the only reason I brought it up. So it sounds like we do, which is good to know. With that, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I appreciate you bringing this up, and I can make sure that it's in the next policy committee meeting.
Perfect. And with that, I motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Atherton and a second from Ms. Smiley. Mr. Atherton?
Yes.
Ms. Doyle?
Yes.
Ms. Hauser?
Yes.
I vote yes. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Smiley?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
The minutes are approved. And now we will, the first presentation tonight is an update from our partners at Swim for Charlie. Orange County Schools has been so fortunate to be a part of the Dr. Charles Vanderhorst Water Safety Initiative, which was piloted at Eflin Cheeks Global Elementary, Central Elementary, and New Hope Elementary. I would like to welcome two of their board members tonight, Chair Dr. John Klein and the Secretary, Ms. Meg Pomerantz, who are here to tell you more. Welcome, Dr. Klein and Ms. Pomerantz.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for allowing us to present.
So Ms. Is it Ms. Crimmins who will be sharing the presentation? Bear with us, Dr. Klein. We will get it up.
I will get it up in just a minute.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Crimmins.
Some of the slides you'll see will be a recap of what we presented back in November. But now that you have 3 new board members, it's important that I think everybody is up to speed.
All right, it looks like we're almost ready.
I'm just reading Laura's remarks at the end. That's my job.
But will you be?
Beautiful.
Okay.
You'll probably see it.
So the Dr. Charles Vanderhorst Water Safety Initiative, also known as Swim for Charlie, started this February. And our first pictures, which are now pictures of your students, no longer canned pictures of internet people, shows first day of the program, children coming off the school bus in the water, having a recap of the water safety tips of the day with all our instructors. We have Instructor Morgan, Dan, Lou, Jerry, Dylan, and in the background, we can see Dana with her students there. Next slide, please.
You can see.
Our mission is to equip children with life-saving water safety skills by providing a high-quality water safety program to second grade North Carolina students. Next slide, please. The initiative envisions a community where water safety programs are available to all school-age children. We foresee a day when all children are safer around the water and strive for a time when our participants will be those teaching and helping to keep safe both their peers and future generations of children. Next slide, please. It will operate using the values embodied by Dr. Vanderhorst: social equity, compassion, integrity, collaboration, confidence, and courage. We have recently added social equity, not because we haven't used that as an operating value in the past, but we wanted to make sure it was explicit. The ways we embody social equity, we have put our funds in the Self-Help Credit Union in Durham, and we have made a decision that when we go to a school district, we will have Title I schools as the first schools that we will be targeting, followed by the rest of the schools in the district. And as we move forward to choose future school districts, we will choose those of higher need. Next slide, please. Another picture of Instructor Morgan with a class showing them how to get their faces used to the water. Remember, some of these children have a fear of the water. Some of them have never had swim lessons. This is a wonderful opportunity for them. In the bottom, we see instructors Morgan and Dan supervising the children or as they learn how to get out of the water by themselves, pushing up. In the background, we see instructor Dylan teaching a child how to do a back float with the aid of a kickboard. You'll also see these white platforms in the water. They are used to enlarge the available swim area. Those platforms come up about 2 feet or so, so the children are kept above the water. Next slide, please. Why are we doing this? Drowning is one of the leading causes of death in children. Next. 79% of children in households with incomes less than $50,000 have little to no swimming ability, a large percentage of children. 64% of African American, 45% of Hispanic Latino, and 40% of Caucasian children have little to no swimming ability. This is a problem that cuts across the entire community. Unfortunately, a disproportionate number of those children without means and those children of color have these problems. 10 people drown each day in the United States. Next slide. 80 to 100 near drownings occur each day in the United States. Next slide, please. This is the important kicker. Swimming lessons reduce the likelihood of childhood drowning by 88%. So what we have is a significant public health problem, but more importantly, we have a way to improve this problem. It's not futile. Next slide, please. Additional benefits, other than the obvious water safety ones, are that swimming is a low-impact form of exercise that can prevent and help manage chronic health conditions such as obesity, diabetes, hypertension, arthritis, and depression. Next. Aquatics provides sports and employment opportunities. Next, please. There's a nationwide shortage of lifeguards. Having more people who are able to swim will increase the pool of lifeguard candidates. This will make aquatic venues safer. Next, please. This is a kicking slide. The top left, we see children sitting on the side of the pool kicking, and this is done at the beginning of most sessions so they get used to the water, they can feel the water on their bodies. And we see instructor Dana working with one of the earlier groups on showing how they kick on the stairs there. So those children who may be afraid to go in deeper water are comfortable on the stairs. And we see two more groups down in the bottom two slides. Next slide, please. The initiative hopes to emulate the type of cause Dr. Vanderhorst would undertake. Our specific goals are, slide, evaluate existing child water safety programs and assist in further development, implementation, and growth. Next, focus on childhood groups most likely to benefit from water safety programs. We know those groups from the previous slide on background. Next, provide programs in which children will learn basic water safety and swimming skills which will keep them safer in and around the water. Next, please. This is a beautiful series of slides. A patient student raising her hand, hoping to be called on. This is the first day of class. This child was in a class that had no prior swimming ability. Here she is demonstrating in the second slide a front float. Third slide is a look of pure joy as she comes up. And the fourth slide is the instructor's pure joy. Wonderful series. Next, please. Dr. Vanderhorst was a physician in infectious disease specifically, a leader, and a humanitarian who used his brilliant mind to bring knowledge and compassion together to solve difficult medical, academic, and societal problems. He was a lifelong pool and open water competitive swimmer. He fought tirelessly to improve the health of those most vulnerable, and he had a deep love of children. Next slide, please. Charlie was courageous. The impetus for the Dr. Charles Vanderhorst Water Safety Initiative was his untimely death during a marathon swim in the Hudson River in June of last year. Charlie accomplished so much in his life because he knew no limits. He embraced academic, societal, and athletic challenges with gusto, and he inspired his friends, family, to reach new heights as well. Next slide, please. This program is a partnership with Orange County Sportsplex. We're honored that we can bring these groups together. Next slide. Who are the people who were instrumental in making this happen? Central Elementary Principal Jamie Bell Williams, upper left. Eflin Cheeks, Principal Minnie Goins, bottom left. New Hope Elementary Principal Amber Williams, upper right. And our Swim for Charlie Program Director, Alexa Zolikoff. These women were pretty much the glue that made sure the program kept moving. Next, please. Here's a slide showing the community togetherness. Former board chair Will Atherton, general manager of the Sportsplex, Andrew Stock, Swim for Charlie board member Susie Leaf, me, and Principal Jamie Bell Williams. On the right, Dr. Monique Felder has been instrumental not only in her support, but in pushing away obstacles and making sure that the memorandum of understanding between the three groups was successfully completed. Next slide, please. The program is where Swim for Charlie partners with Orange County Schools and the Sportsplex to transport secondary the school day to the pool for water safety and swim instruction. This is done in the middle of the day. It's a good time for the sportsplex because they don't have much activity at that time. So that's when we did it. Next bullet point, please. There are 8 sessions over 2 weeks. Next slide, please. The program uses the North Carolina Healthful Living Standards and is a part of the health and physical education curriculum. Phys ed is just not being done in the gym, it's being done at the pool. Next slide, please. A slide showing the water safety skill, life-saving skill of being able to float on your back. We have instructor Robert, upper left and bottom right, Dan, bottom left, and Amy, upper right, along with Kirsten's shoulder. Next slide, please. We wanted to use a model that has been shown to be successful. We did not want to reinvent the wheel. So we went with a proven model, and Swim for Charlie has duplicated the highly successful Guilford County model. Next slide, please. The Greensboro Aquatic Center, in partnership with Guilford County Schools, has created an excellent Learn to Swim program. Next slide, please. It's been operating since 2012 and is graduating 1,800 students a year. They started with 257 their first year. Next slide, please. The first classes began February 3rd of this year. And I might like to add that that's like less than 8 months after Charlie died. So the speed with which this program came to be is remarkable. The first year, the program graduated 194 students from Central, Eflin Cheeks, and New Hope Elementary Schools. Next slide, please. Schools will be added, prioritizing those with the highest percentage of students in need of instruction. Next slide, please. Now we move into slides that you didn't see last November because we didn't have results. But we are very happy to present 98% of all second grade students in the participating schools participated. Next, 95% of students at level 0 or 1, and I'll explain what that is in just a moment, advanced to at least level 2. Next slide. 91% of students at levels 2, 3, and 4 advanced at least 1 level. Next slide, please. 60% of students began at levels 0 to 1. That meant they were either fearful of the water, and we had some incredibly brave students. One student who had a family drowning, and other students who had other personal near drownings. And you have to credit their parents with trusting us with their children to help them be safer in the water. Anyway, so 0 to 1 were either fearful of the water, or if comfortable in the water, they had no swimming ability and no prior swim lessons. And 40%, next slide, 40% began at level 2 or higher. That meant they at least had the ability to float on the front and the back and get to a front float to a back float and swim a few strokes. Next slide. We had a 5-to-1 student instructor ratio, which was partially paid instructors from the Sportsplex, and we were blessed with many volunteer instructors from the community. Next slide, please. The next couple of slides just show the skill levels. They'll just be in the PowerPoint if someone wants to take a look at those, but we don't need to go over them. Next slide. Our long-term goal is to include all Orange County elementary schools in the coming school year, followed by expansion to other school districts. As we all know, we are on a pause. And while we had the best intentions of starting 3 or 4 of the schools this coming fall, with the other 3 or 4 in the spring, we are just waiting to see what happens. And we have money in the bank, and we have instructors who are ready to teach, but we're obviously not until there are field trips okayed by the schools will we be able to do this. Our ultimate goal is for the initiative to grow statewide as our resources allow. Next slide. We expect the initiative to continue for the long term over decades and have a profound effect upon youth health and lives, matching Charlie's broad vision. Next line. Instructor Kirsten, again, working with some floating. We have a group of New Hope students on the swim platform, waiting patiently to swim back to the wall. Instructor Jerry working with some students, showing them how to swim with an overhand and a kickboard. And the Sportsplex aquatic director, Cliff, teaching some students, I guess instructing them on some other skills. Next slide, please. Program expenses, we had estimated about $40. It actually came to $34 and per child, and which means less than $5 per lesson, which is incredibly cheap. And that includes the cost of the instructors, the supplies, meaning caps, bathing suits and towels for those children who didn't have them, year-end celebration, which we didn't have this year, certificates, which we did have, and plaques for the schools participating in the program. Those were our direct expenses. Next line, please. And as I said, students who don't have the caps, suits, or towels, they're provided by us. Next line. Other costs include our program director salary, administrative fees, office supplies, and the transportation costs, which were borne by the Orange County schools. Next slide. Our budget was $34,000 for the first year. Next slide, please. Our funding has been secured primarily through private donations, and we've submitted several grants. We have been sort of in the final stages of several grants, and then when COVID hit, we were unfortunately, we had to take a seat to those raising funds for important things like feeding children in schools and other worthy causes. We may have fundraising events in the future. Next slide. Donors will also be able to contribute through our website, swimforcharlie.org. I would like to mention that we are a 501c3 nonprofit charitable organization. Next slide. Charlie was influential in many realms. A large number of individuals and groups have already generously contributed. Next slide. The Orange County Schools has provided the transportation with buses and drivers to and from the Sportsplex. Next slide. And the Sportsplex has graciously donated the pool time for free. Next slide. Parents and permission will be obtained through an information sheet. Permission slip is handed out to the parents. It needs to be signed prior to the teacher before the classes start. Next slide. I had a question, will the teachers accompany their students? There needs to be at least one male and one female chaperone from the schools. They can be teachers, parents, or other school designee. And the teachers have the option of joining the students in the water. Next slide. Each session is 10-minute dry classroom water safety talk, which we have been updating during since our last session. And then there's a 40-minute in-water lesson time. Time away from school is approximately 1 hour and 30 minutes, including driving back and forth and the actual program. Next. Students will need to bring a swimsuit that is not cotton. Cotton gunks up the system. And a towel is also necessary. Cap is optional. I would like to say that we will not be using goggles in future years, but this is primarily a water safety program. If a child falls in the water, they're not going to quickly run and get their goggles. So those will not be used in the future. Next slide, please. The lessons are taught by the professional instructors at the Sportsplex, along with master swimmers and other adults in swimming and teaching experience in the community. Next. Any student may participate. Those students needing one-on-one supervision or assistance at school will need their caretaker with them at the pool. Next, please. Students receive an end of certificate at the end of the year. I'll show you that in just a moment. Next. Parents can observe, but we ask them to do that at a distance. We don't want them right by their child's side, because that's a distraction. Next. I'd like to say the parents were very respectful during the first year. Many of them took pictures and were very supportive. Transportation, as mentioned, is by the schools. Our program director coordinates that with the teachers, Orange County Transportation Manager, and the Sportsplex. Next. I apologize, it's a little bit blurry. It's much nicer in the actual hard copy, but that's what our certificate to the children looks like. Next. Children will not be wearing life jackets or other flotation devices during the lessons. However, they will learn how and when to don a life jacket during our special water safety instruction day. Next. All students be in the water at the same time? Depending on the skill level of the group, all students may be in the water at the same time. There'll be multiple instructors in the water. Next. From a school standpoint, is this a field trip? It is an educational field trip. It is part of the student's health and physical education curriculum as it aligns with the North Carolina Schools Healthful Living Standards. Next. Is there liability? Yes. The Sportsplex has insurance for anybody who enters their facility and the instructors. Orange County Schools has insurance for the time on the buses. Swim for Charlie has insurance for the volunteers, program director, and board members. Next. When did it start? We went over that back in February. Next. What role did or will the Board of Ed have in the program? Last year, you agreed to approve the plan, and we hope that you will again agree to expand the program to all 7 schools in the coming year or whenever we can get in the water with the students. You've agreed to a memorandum of understanding, which is a wonderful template as we roll this out to other school districts. You funded the transportation, and again, we hope you'll do that in the future. And then importantly, as we are planning on having talks with other school districts, we hope that you will speak with these other school districts about the benefit the students received as a result of this program and partnership. We want you to be a role model for other school districts. Next slide, please. Here are the plaques. I apologize for my poor camera skills. They say, in recognition of participation in Swim for Charlie, in partnership with Orange County Schools and Orange County Sportsplex, Central Elementary School, Eflin Cheeks Elementary School, New Hope Elementary School, February 2020. They're beautiful plaques, and we had a nice presentation ceremony, which we'll show you in just a second on the next slide. There I am presenting to Jamie Bell Williams from Central Elementary School. We have Board Chair Hillary McKenzie, Superintendent Monique Felder, General Manager Andrew Stock, Program Director Alexa Zollicoffer, and Swim for Charlie Board Member Susie Leaf. Next slide, please. Don Gilchrist, our Vice Chair and Secretary, presenting to Minnie Goins, Principal of Eflin Cheeks. And on the right, we see Janice Campagna, our newest Swim for Charlie board member. Next, please. And finally, Jim Tucker, our Swim for Charlie board member, presenting to Craig Dodson, assistant principal of New Hope Elementary. And on the right is Meg Pomerantz, our secretary of our board. And at this point, Meg has a statement that she would like to read from Charlie's widow, Dr. Laura Svetke. And if you could bring, I'll mute, and if you could bring Meg in, that would be great.
Ms. Pomerantz, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you. There I am. Thank you. Yes, we were not sure whether or not Dr. Svetke, Charlie's widow, would be able to join us tonight, and she is on the call, but I would like to read a statement from her. She wanted us to all know that Charlie is with us in spirit and that his heart would be full. He would be so grateful for this honor, so proud of the schools for stepping up for their students in this way. So grateful to his swim buddies and others putting his memory to good use. And of course, he would be saying it with tears streaming down his face, because that's the person Charlie was. So thank you so much for the support that you have given to us over this past session and season. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pomerantz. I think that I can safely speak from the board that we have nothing but gratitude for the partnership with the Swim for Charlie organization. It's been such a beautiful thing to watch. We've gotten so much incredible feedback from parents and students, and I think this is the beginning of a beautiful partnership, and we are just very appreciative of all of the effort. So thank you so much, and thank you for being here tonight and presenting this.
You're welcome. Are there any questions?
Mr. Atherton?
It's not so much a question. I just wanted to say this is what our community engagement is. This is about, removing barriers, making sure there's no reason that a student couldn't engage in this. And it was just fantastic and heartwarming to see all of the engagement in the students and the smiles and the water and just how fantastic it moved. It was just amazing. And I just wanted to say, echo what Hillary had said. It's just fantastic. I look forward to seeing this grow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Atherton. Is there any other comment from the board? Well, I think that is it. We are so appreciative once again, and we look forward to hearing back from you sometime in the future.
Thank you. We'll present next year, hopefully with more good news.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Klein and Ms. Pomerantz. So the next item on our agenda is an update on reopening schools, and I will pass this to Dr. Felder.
Why, thank you again, Mrs. McKenzie, and I'm going to ask if we could pull up the PowerPoint deck for tonight. And so while the deck is being loaded, I just want to again just say that in the almost 3 weeks since our last board meeting, certainly a lot has been happening, and a lot of work has been going on, almost nonstop, pretty much nonstop if you want to include the weekends, but it's all for good cause, and very focused on ensuring that we are ready for our students on August 17th. So tonight we want to provide an update. Next slide, please. Yes, so we want to provide an update in the 7 areas outlined on this slide. So in the area of equity, human resources, technology, community, curriculum and instruction, operations, communications, and the metrics monitoring task force. And we also want to, of course, provide the board with an opportunity to provide guidance, which we value and appreciate, as well as to share your comments and questions, which we also appreciate. So those are our outcomes for tonight. Next slide, please. There is one decision that we will need the board to make tonight. You are going to hear about 3 meal delivery plan options for reopening under Plan C. And we would like for you to give us, make a decision with regards to the 3 options that will be presented tonight. So you'll hear about them later on in tonight's presentation. Next slide, please. So before I turn it over to staff who are going to provide the updates in the 7 areas that I spoke to previously, I just want to make it abundantly clear that while we are in unprecedented times and starting school in the midst of a pandemic, this district remains very focused on what our data tells us we need to be focused on. And those 4 priority areas, equity actually is one that just is the thread that runs through everything that we do. And so it goes without saying that equity remains a priority in the district. Our data tells us that we also need to remain focused on literacy. Literacy is a civil right. It's the ability to read, the ability to write, speak, and think critically. It is absolutely necessary to be successful in school and in life in general. And so our data is telling us that we need to have a laser-like focus on literacy. The data also tells us that we need to keep a focus and make a priority climate and culture, which also shows up as social emotional learning for our students and adults. And so climate, culture, social emotional learning is about the norms, values, and beliefs and perceptions. And it is the process through which children and staff understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy for others, and establish and maintain relationships. And so it's about the whole child. And so we can't only focus on academics. In fact, we won't, even on our best day, our students won't be as successful if we're not also taking care of their social emotional learning needs and ensuring that all staff and that students are learning and working in a climate and culture that's conducive for that. And last but not least, our data informs us that we need to keep as a high priority our family and community engagement. And so we know from the research that family and community engagement is vital to. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Keeling. So speaking of equity, Dr. Keeling is going to provide an update of the work that we're doing in the district with regards to equity. So Dr. Keeling, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good evening. Tonight, I'm here to give an update on some of the opening of school equity work for the 2020-2021 school year. One of the expectations of Policy 1030 Equity in Education is that all administrators, teachers, and staff are trained in the implementation of the policy. This past week, I walked all administrators through a review of Equity Policy 1030. Administrators will now train their staff on the policy as part of the policy assurance review during the teacher work days this week. I am now in the process of scheduling training for all non-school-based staff on the equity policy. In addition to being trained on the policy, I've also scheduled some of our district equity professional development for the year. We will continue our partnership with Pacific Education Group, Courageous Conversations About Race. PEG will continue to facilitate our district executive equity leadership team, which we call DELT. In this training, we will examine district policies, practices, programs, structures, and climate and culture to identify barriers to equity and excellence. PEG will also continue to facilitate our joint principal and district leadership training, which we call LEADS. In these sessions, we focus on deepening our understanding of institutionalized racism and its impact on student learning, as well as receive support for leading district and school level systemic equity transformation. We have a new partnership with the Intercultural Development Research Association, IDRA. They're going to provide quarterly district-wide equity training on such topics as implicit bias, culturally responsive teaching strategies, and effective communication and family engagement. Another update is around our school-based equity teams. Last year, every school identified staff to serve on their school-based equity team, and those staff members received racial equity training through PEG. This year, the teams are ready to take the lead with equity in their schools. They will receive ongoing equity training throughout the year. An equity team member will also serve on the school improvement team to assist with ensuring an equity focus is within each of the school improvement plan goals. Every school-based equity team has an equity lead. I will be meeting with those equity leads monthly. Some of the work the leads will be doing will include identifying monthly equity foci for the district, as well as developing activities, discussion prompts, presentations, etc., for the school-based equity team to implement within their schools, as well as for district leadership to implement within their departments. My goal is for us to create our own OCS Leading with Equity curriculum. And finally, I recently met with a group of high school students focused on social justice and asked them what they wanted teachers to know as we head back to school. And I met with an equity team teacher and asked what were some of the questions teachers were asking around equity. And there was a shared comment from both teachers and students. And that was around teachers creating space for conversations about race and social justice. And so one of the topics in the equity section of our expectations and guidance document is on preparing conversations around race. I've listed some of the points here that are included. First, we want to make sure that we are creating spaces for student voice and centering the voices of students of color. We want teachers to allow students to help develop class norms that will keep them safe, ensure those norms are followed, and immediately address it when they are not. We want teachers to speak their truth. We recognize that teachers and staff are still in the process of learning and doing some self-reflection, so they may not have the answers to all the questions that students ask. And students are aware of this. They want staff to speak their truth. They want staff to let them know if they're still learning. And they want staff to be open to students teaching them. One of the comments from students was that they want teachers to move in the direction of culturally relevant teaching.
I'm presenting because
Culturally relevant teaching calls for incorporating students' lives and what's happening in their world and community into course content. Discussions about current and historical race relations and racism should be part of our course content, as should discussions about the accomplishments of people of color and recognition of their contributions. And then what students really want is for teachers and staff to speak up when a racial incident or any act of intolerance happens. They want us to immediately call it out and address it, support the targeted students, and use restorative practice techniques to implement healing. I shared both with the students I met with and with the teachers and staff in the expectation and guidance documents, a resource called Speak Up, which includes steps on how to speak up and to speak out when an act of intolerance happens. If there are no burning questions from me, I will turn the presentation over to Ms. Cunningham-Brown.
So thank you, Dr. Keeling. And so board members, we do want to give you an opportunity to pose any burning questions that you may have, questions that may get in the way of you being able to engage in the rest of the presentation if they are not answered at this time. If not, we would ask if you could defer your questions to the end of the presentation. So any burning questions at this time? All right, thank you, Dr. Keeling. Mrs. Cunningham-Brown.
hello. Thank you, Dr. Felder. Thank you, Dr. Keeling. At this time, I'd like to give some brief updates regarding human resources. In the first area, I'd like to present some updates regarding our current vacancies. In our elementary program, we have 4 classroom vacancies, 5 non-classroom vacancies. In our middle level programs, we have 3 classroom vacancies. And in our high school program, we have 2 non-classroom vacancies, and one is Spanish and one is in ESL. We also have 23 classified vacancies at this moment. Another area that I'd like to bring you an update on is regarding our staff members who have identified at risk or high risk. To date, we have 68 employees who have self-identified as high risk. And to date, we placed 45 or temporarily approved their ADA accommodations for remote working. And we continue to work with the other staff to create personal accommodation plans based on the reasonable accommodations that they have requested. Roles and responsibilities and reassignments are fluid, and we continue to monitor our staffing needs throughout the district. The Human Resources Department, in collaboration with our Operations Department and Dr. Williams, are working to make sure that we closely monitor needs in our transportation, child nutrition programs, because those staff oftentimes are not able to work remotely. We are looking at reassignments in the following areas to provide temperature checks at our schools. Some of our transportation staff will assume those responsibilities. We're also looking at reassigning some staff members to provide additional custodial services as we aim to make sure that we are deep cleaning throughout our facilities. We're also reassigning staff members to our IT team to help with the help desk, and we continue to look at areas throughout the district that we can use additional staff based on the needs of our particular departments. With regards to a reduction in force or furloughs, I've heard that come up a couple of times. Due to the opening of school in a remote format, ongoing budgetary concerns and other factors, the district may need to explore a reduction in force or other measures to address a reduction in work for certain departments and groups. But again, we continue to monitor this ongoing with our different chiefs in the different areas. That is the HR updates, and I'd like to pause to see if there are any burning questions. If there are no burning questions, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Dr. Dawson.
Are you able to hear and see me? Great, thank you. Good evening, Dr. Felder, Mrs. McKenzie and the board. Since our last technology update, as you are aware, our manufacturer that is assembling our 1,700 Chromebooks for our first through third graders was put on the entity list by the U.S. Department of Commerce with accusations of human rights and child labor law violations. Since that time, we've looked at a number of other options, including buying other models from other companies. And due to the exorbitant costs, we found that what was the most viable option at this time is to rent. And so the most cost-effective solution is to distribute any of our extra Chromebooks that we've held in reserve to use as replacements for when students need repairs on their devices. And this is about 1,000 that we have in the district, leaving us about 700 devices short. So we will be renting the 700 and working with the vendor to get them here as soon as possible. As of today, what I've heard is that our aim is to get them here by Wednesday. In that case, what we will be able to do is, it's a lot of work, but we will bring a team together. We'll unpack the 700 devices. We will need to re-image them and make sure that they're properly prepared for our students. And our aim is to do that by Thursday so that we can get them to our schools that are still in need of the devices for their 1st through 3rd graders so that they can work to distribute them to their families this Friday so that our students will still have a device before the first day of school. And the schools will be scheduling their own distribution drive-throughs. So that is our aim. In case that we were not able to meet these deadlines, we did reach out to our families so that if they did have their own personal device, that they would be able to use those in place of the district provided device. But we're hoping that we will not have to do that should all the 700 rented devices come in this week. In our continued preparation for Plan B, we are still in progress of equipping all of our classrooms with the flat panels, which will allow our teachers to live stream their classes once we are able to offer in-person classes. And those flat panels are in process of being here and installed, and is happening this week. Also for hotspots, we have run out of the 500 hotspots that were ordered previously. And with those 500, the devices were free and we had to pay for the monthly service. Verizon now has a new agreement, and under the new agreement, while they are decreasing the monthly service fee, we are being charged for the devices. And so with the CARES Act fund that we were provided that allows us to purchase devices, we will be purchasing about 270 more additional hotspots. And as soon as those are in, the families that have signed up for them, we will be notifying them and making sure that they receive the hotspots as soon as they come in. Next slide. But we do know that we still have families that have limited or no connectivity at all. And to support our families, we are working to expand locations where families can go for free Wi-Fi access. Families are welcome to drive to any of our secondary school parking lots for Wi-Fi service, where they can download work and upload assignments or send a communication to their teachers. And for families with no connectivity, teachers will provide their coursework on flash drives, and students can then submit their completed work on the same flash drive. And this will also help alleviate paper copies. And they can, arrange the pickup with their teacher. It may be when they're picking up their meals, or if they want to arrange to come to the school to pick them up on a schedule that fits the family. And so for hotspots, there is, Spectrum does have a heat map on their website where you can go in and put your address in, and you want to be careful where you want to put the address. There is a location on the right-hand side of the screen, and you don't want to put your address in there. You want to put it on the left side of the screen, and you'll see that when you go to their accessing their free Wi-Fi page of their website. And if you put in your address, you'll be able to find where you can have access to free Spectrum Wi-Fi. We also are working on a schedule for our yellow bus hotspot, so that once we have that schedule for you, we will share, and you can also go near the hotspot where you'll be able to use that Wi-Fi access as well. We're also coordinating, reaching out to our business organization partners to see how else we can provide their Wi-Fi access for our families as well. And again, just working with flash drives with our teachers to help alleviate paperwork. We also know that as the school year starts and we're all working remotely, we understand that there's going to most likely be an increase in families needing tech support. And so to help with that, we are expanding our IT helpline by adding more people to answer calls, including a bilingual speaker. And they'll basically be, answering phone calls, but please understand they're not tech experts. So they will be helping families if they haven't been able to log in a help ticket on the website. The people answering the phones will be able to help families to do so. But we do encourage families and staff to please refer to the website and put in your own ticket, and that'll help expedite response from our tech team. Also, our digital learning coaches are preparing a schedule of tutorials for our families on topics such as navigating Canvas, and Dr. Gammon will share a little bit more details about that schedule, and including a tutorial on our online resources that will be coming up later this week. We do encourage our families and staff to check out the site provided by NCDPI for a plethora of resources on remote learning. They have some great information and tutorials there that we find very informative and helpful. So we do encourage our parents and teachers to check that out. Also, we have set up a fundraiser to support remote learning needs, such as headphones and flash drives for families or other school materials that families may need. And so if you are able to donate, please go to our www.k12paymentscenter.com, where you'll have an opportunity to donate any amount that you're able to help support our students to ensure that they have the tools that they need to be successful in their remote learning experience this fall. So if there are no burning questions for me at this time, I would like to turn the presentation over to Dr. Gammon.
Ms. Smiley and then Ms. Hauser.
If this is not I do have a couple of questions that I'll hold for later, but it's just one clarification point that I want to make about the devices that are not, the company that got put on the list. This is not some like sketchy little company that Orange County Schools contracted with. This is like some sort of supplier of Lenovo. Like the thing is, we got Lenovo devices, and then something that they get, that company got on a list. So if there are people out there who are like, how is Orange County Schools like working with companies who use child labor? It's Lenovo devices, and that's why. So that's, I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley. I think that is a very helpful point to the public. Ms. Hauser?
I just have a couple of very quick questions on the hotspots. Do we have a rough idea of when we're going to get them? And if parents that still need them, should they go to their principals, or should they go to, who should they go to get on a wait list to get them when they arrive? And similarly with the computers, there seems to be lots of questions from parents about computers. Who should they go to if they have questions? And I realize a really tough situation. And Dr. Dawson, thank you so much for the way you've stepped in on it. But where should people go with questions?
Yeah. So again, for their devices, again, we're aiming for the devices to be here this week. So they can reach out to their schools for, because as soon as we get that information, we will be sharing that with the principals, and they are already waiting, right? They kind of have all of their plans in place for the drive-through. They're just waiting for confirmation of when the devices will be here. So, right. Our aim is to make sure all families have a device K through 12 this week. So they can contact a school. Again, they can call the IT help desk if they are wondering about a device. If they're a new student to Orange County Schools, they can also contact their new school here in Orange County, and they will be able to help them if they don't have a device in their, say their new ninth grader coming in, they can contact the school. As far as hotspots, there you can call in to the IT and we'll sign you up for a hotspot. And again, if you go to our technology website, there are links there that you can help and sign up and let us know your need. And as soon as they're in, we will be reaching out to make sure that they have their hotspot, may it be through a meal pickup, or if they're coming to the school for a pickup, we will make sure that they get the equipment that they need.
Great, thank you so much. Do we have an idea of when they're coming, the hotspots?
That I don't know yet. But okay. I'm on a phone call with the vendors multiple times a day. So as soon as I know.
Okay, good for you. Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And this is just a quick reminder to everyone who isn't speaking to please remember to mute yourselves just so we have as much clarity as possible. Thank you.
Hillary, I did have one, just two things. One, to Sarah's point, I know the slide said manufacturer. It is not Lenovo, as she mentioned. It's one of the channel partners which assembles it. The only thing I was going to say, I do have a lot of questions in this area, but the only one I wanted to say is I can help when they come in, please let me know. I'm more than willing to volunteer and social distance while we do it. So please let me know.
I will take you up on that, Mr. Atherton.
Maybe you can inform the whole board, Dr. Dawson, because I think there are many of us who would be happy to be in on that if needed.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dawson. Ms. Doyle?
Okay, just trying to make this quick. So the hotspots that are like take-home devices, that would enable students to participate in some of the synchronous learning. I'm understanding it that way, but that is it more likely that the hotspots that are like drive up, the intention there is that they would just be using to upload and download material, or is it imagined that you know, if there's like a 10-minute portion of a class that's synchronous learning, that they would be parking and participating? I'm just thinking about kids who might have difficulty participating with synchronous learning.
Yeah. So, Ms. Doyle, we definitely would not expect that our families would come to these parking lots and be sitting in cars, especially in the heat of the day, and sitting through lessons. That would not be conducive for our children's learning. But yes, if there are, you know, times that because they don't have connectivity at home, they want to come and maybe they've scheduled a time where they're going to have a conference with their teacher because they have a specific question, or they would like a brief one-to-one conversation with their teacher, or that, yes, you know what, the teacher has a pre-recorded lesson that they would like to download and they don't want to wait for the flash drive. You know, these are different options that we're trying to provide families so that they don't feel like that they don't have access to this opportunity because they don't have connectivity. So we're trying to, you know, multiple ways that even though you don't have connectivity, that they can still connect with their teacher. It might even be where, you know, a small group of their peers have scheduled a time that they want to check in with each other on a project, that they can come in and, you know, and that's why we're also reaching out to businesses. If it's a restaurant, that the kids can actually, you know, social distance and inside, be safe in a cooler environment, you know, to do some of that. You know, we're looking in those options, at those options for families as well.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Dawson, Dr. Felder, as well as members of the board. Our essential work as a curriculum and instruction team this spring and summer has involved formulating adaptable responses to driving questions around remote learning. In order to craft an effective plan, we've noted the significance of beginning with the end in mind. Where do we hope to see staff, students, and families in their learning at the end of the 2021 school year? And which critical measures will need to occur to ensure all stakeholders progress toward individual as well as collective goals. So first, OCS, district, and school teams have worked collectively to define instructional expectations and priorities for the school year. The three critical areas of focus within curriculum and instruction are literacy, social emotional learning, and remote learning best practices. During the spring and summer, Orange County Schools partnered with the New Teacher Project to analyze recent data trends in literacy and survey staff and families to inform our team of strengths and critical needs within our literacy curriculum. This information enabled our team to formulate an initial plan of action aligned to the science of reading by supporting high-quality letterland implementation, strengthening K-5 students' background knowledge and vocabulary, while also exposing them to complex grade level text, and providing professional development opportunities in foundational literacy skills while building all teachers' understanding of the science of reading. So how will we accomplish this work? As far as letterland, teachers will be participating in ongoing job-embedded support, such as literacy coaches will be modeling upcoming synchronous lessons or leading one-on-one or small group dress rehearsal sessions with teachers to practice upcoming synchronous lessons so that they can get this support in real time. We've identified 6 to 12 read alouds per quarter, choosing topics aligned to the Orange County Schools yearly pacing guides and the North Carolina Standard Course of Study. This will be work that happens in social studies and science classes at the K-5 level, working with core knowledge texts. We will be providing video recordings of each read aloud and giving teachers options to use those recordings or to make their own recordings so that students can be exposed, as noted before, to background knowledge and vocabulary within complex grade level text. And then finally, we're going to be working from a professional development lens in the space of literacy by delivering trainings around the 2020-21 literacy focus, showing how all of the different pieces, Letterland, core knowledge text, and our units of study in a blended environment fit together and complement one another. The leader-facing version of these trainings will include recommendations for how leaders can best support teachers. And in the longer term, Orange County Schools will continue to expose all teachers K-8 to robust coursework, such as the Friday Center's foundational skills courses or letters training to build teachers' understanding of the science of reading. Our second focus area, as noted, is social emotional learning. Our staff has been continuing to learn about social emotional learning as we move into the 2021 school year. Professional development started with principals and selected staff learning techniques to help all staff members manage stress and successfully integrate back into the school setting. All schools will create a time for re-entry community building circles with staff to start honoring and grieving the past school year and what school used to look like and feel like, while building a sense of community to celebrate the successes and tackle the challenges of this upcoming school year. Measuring this work will come in a variety of ways. Orange County Schools recently partnered with Panorama Education to provide our team a metric for success. The all-in-one data platform pools key student information into one spot and gives dashboard reporting features to help us move from interpreting data to taking action and improving student outcomes in the social emotional learning space. We will be able to access Panorama's vault of research-backed surveys to collect and take action on the information that is most critical to our district's success. Next slide, please. In addition to enhancements to our literacy and social emotional learning framework, our third priority of focus is ensuring consistent growth for all stakeholders in the remote learning, Plan C remote learning. Based on observations, input from the remote learning subcommittee, and teacher and family feedback during the spring and summer, the curriculum and instruction division, in conjunction with teacher leaders across the district, committed many hours to transition existing vetted core curriculum to a blended learning format and the design of blueprint courses. These courses do provide many lessons, small group support, individual and collaborative work time, and an opportunity to share work with teachers as well as peers. While the blueprint courses are intended to offer a functional transition from traditional face-to-face curriculum to a remote learning setting, it's important to also note that other new online curriculum has been implemented to serve to bolster the overall learning experience by engaging all students K-12 in a series of diagnostic assessments and personalized learning pathways across grade level content areas. Next slide, please. While training staff and students is vital to our launch of remote learning, our team understands the importance of parent connection and support as well. To that end, our digital learning coaches have created video tutorials and support documents for parents, and we will hold upcoming virtual parent academy sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to 7 p.m., beginning with the new online curriculum parent training on August 13th, followed by Canvas for parents and guardians, as well as other sessions focusing on digital resources for K-5 and 6-12 parents. Pre-K will also hold family engagement sessions to ensure connectivity and clear lines of communication during this remote learning period. Next slide, please. Finally, all good plans must be rooted in a metric of measurement to ensure effectiveness and alignment to our priorities. We will measure effectiveness of remote learning by disseminating weekly surveys to staff, students, and families for feedback, investing in our leadership team to grow their capacity to effectively observe and provide formal and informal feedback in a remote learning setting. For students, they will engage in a series of diagnostic assessments using our new online curriculum to enable consistent progress monitoring to occur. And for students who are demonstrating mastery, we will accelerate learning through intentional small group support and nurturing. And for those who are in need of additional supports, we will continue to use daily checks for understanding, one-on-one and small group conferring, as well as the targeted interventions through our MTSS mornings on Fridays. In addition to the different measurement tools, we will also equip staff and families for continuous improvement in three priority areas of literacy, social emotional learning, and remote learning best practices by providing ongoing professional development through the Friday Institute course on remote learning best practices. In an effort to remain consistent with our support during this initial launch of Friday professional development sessions, there will be a compact listing of topics so we can ensure a baseline of success for all teachers. For the first 9 weeks, we will focus on the use of digital tools and structures within the remote setting. To guide our teachers and support staff, we've developed a measurement tool focusing on progressions in key remote learning areas, such as in key remote learning, professional development, coaching, and feedback, again, to ensure staff growth around those research-based concepts that they're pulling from the Friday Institute professional development course. It is critically important for teachers to experience transparent communication around these progressions as we ensure the end goal is clear, how teachers can progress toward a level of mastery, and providing targeted professional development and support at checkpoints along the way. So that is an update of where we are from a curriculum and instruction standpoint. I'm open to any burning questions that you may have at this time. All right. If there are no burning questions, I'm going to turn it over to Crystal Vault, and she's going to talk to us about attendance this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gammon.
Thank you, Dr. Gammon and board members. As we all know, attendance in school and participation in class are integral parts of academic achievement and the teaching and learning process. Through regular attendance, students develop patterns of behavior essential to professional and personal success in life. Given the multiple challenges we are facing this school year, flexibility will be key. During Plan C, we will continue to align with our existing board policy on attendance. Teachers will take attendance each day and maintain attendance records. Students cannot be considered absent solely due to not logging in on a remote learning day. After 3 consecutive absences, guidance counselors, school social workers, and other members of our student support team will assist teachers with follow-up communication, including home visits if necessary. To support schools with their communication with students and their families, we have drafted a letter for their use, which outlines the attendance expectations and procedures. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So on the screen, we have a sample of Plan C. In this school year, all students will be considered present off-site if they are engaged in remote learning. Although we are expecting and find that two-way communication is of the utmost importance, the key action for our families and students to be aware of is that students must complete their work as outlined by the deadline, be it in remote learning, be it synchronous, asynchronous. The vital action will be that the completion of the work by the determined deadline. When we talk about two-way communication, some of those examples include things like Google Forms, Canvas engagement, virtual meetings, emails, or even a phone call from or with a student who does not have internet access. However, the key and critical component is that we're looking for the student to actually engage in their learning and complete their assignments. If there's no engagement, the teacher will actually mark the student as an unexcused absence. We are building in some additional flexibility, so teachers do not have to put that definitive mark in until the end of the week, or there are options or the opportunity for teachers to make adjustment for students who are working offline or working at non-traditional hours. In accordance with our existing policy, when students are absent due to illness, or if there are connectivity concerns, we ask that parents send a note by email or that they reach out to the school by calling the school and leaving a voicemail message. Can we go to the next slide, please? I'll pause briefly if there are any burning questions regarding the attendance.
I don't see any.
Okay, thank you. We'll go on. I have for you a brief overview of our current projected enrollment. As of August 5th, our projected enrollment was 7,309 students. This is down slightly from our day one attendance, August 2019. We know that many families are still in the process of registering, so they are not reflected in these totals. But we thought it was important to make you aware of our current projections. If we can go on to the next slide. We also have an update on the request for our virtual academy by school. As of Friday, August 7th, we received 2,555 requests from families for our virtual academy. This is roughly 35% of our projected enrollment. When or if we are able to shift to Plan B, we will reassess the families at that time to determine their preference for the remainder of the school year. If there are no questions regarding enrollment, or are there any questions regarding enrollment?
I do have a question. So on enrollment, where we have the numbers that are set, how do we know the difference between, say, a family has chosen to do something else at other grades, right? At kindergarten or pre-K, we know they fill out a form and, you know, that's their intent, right? But if you're in middle school or high school and a parent chooses to do something else, is it going to be a day one that we realize that? Because, you know, what, I don't know of necessarily that they have to fill out something to tell us. Does that make sense what I'm asking? How do we know for people that have made a choice other than elementary school to go somewhere else? So when we say enrollment, these are just ones that haven't told us that they're leaving the school. I mean, do we know that, or we won't know until day one?
Well, ultimately, nothing will come into fruition until day one. However, based on the pre-registration from our returning students and families, by the pre-registration information and course selection that would have been completed in the spring, and also our deployment of info for families to go in and indicate their interest or desire to enroll and provide their information there. We have also had families who have been proactive in communicating with us to say that their intentions have changed, and we have begun the process of documenting their requests for withdrawals. But ultimately, The numbers represent those individuals for whom they have verified information and/or verified a course selection for this upcoming school year.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions at this time? If not, I will hand off to Connie Crimmins and/or is it Ellen Kaji regarding enrollment for pre-K. Okay, I'm not certain if Ellen is in as a panelist, so I'll proceed.
Oh, I've got it, Crystal.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry. Trying to do two things here. So if you can see, this is the pre-K enrollment based on the July 2020, which is here in orange, and the July 2019 in blue. Right now, because we're waiting for some screenings and some processes to be taken care of for our pre-K, do anticipate that enrollment for the 2020 school year will go up, and we will have better enrollment numbers within the next 2 weeks. Are there any questions about the pre-K enrollment? All right, I look forward to presenting you with updated numbers at the next board meeting.
Thank you. Yes, I think we're taking burning questions right now.
Okay, I just wanted to know with pre-K, is that going to be in school or is that also going to be virtual?
Ms. Crimmins, are you still available to answer that?
I am, yep. We will be starting virtual, and there is a plan for that. I believe it's on the next slide. Yep. And if you look here, the week of August 20th through August 14th, we're still completing the parent surveys, collecting registration and the documentation. If you look at the week of August 17th through 21st, that's when the placements will be offered to families who meet screening and the income requirement. There'll be a family engagement session that week. And then on the 26th, the first day of pre-K, and that will be virtual at this point. The team has come up with a plan for all of that.
Okay, and devices?
Yes, there will be devices for our pre-K. Dr. Dawson, I believe, could you just confirm that? But I know for our students with disabilities, there absolutely will be is for them. And well, my belief is that yes, there will be devices for all of pre.
Okay, I didn't mean to jump you ahead. Thank you.
Okay, so if there are no other questions regarding pre-K and for Ms. Crimmins, who is multitasking tonight, thank you so much, Ms. Crimmins.
Thank you for your patience.
You're a woman of many talents, and we appreciate you. So if
Dr.
there are no other
Palmer.
questions, yes.
Yeah, I do have one other question, and
Okay.
it's not so much it's pre-K. I do know at the age of 3, we do offer services to students that may not qualify for pre-K, but they have external services, and normally we handle those through partnerships with daycares, preschool, where we provide the services there. I'm just curious, since we're talking pre-K, and we haven't really talked about those kids that are not quite in pre-K, how are those services handled? Are we going to be offering devices, or are they going to be at the in person? Anyway, any insight in that area?
Sure. Mr. Atherton, are you referring to the students with disabilities who get off itinerant services?
Yes,
So
yes,
yes,
exactly.
our pre-K team has been working with Head Start and the external daycares in order to provide those services. So they are going to be doing teletherapy. We are going to survey the families first to see if there is a device in the home or in the daycare that can be utilized. As in the daycare, we certainly want to be cautious with our equipment, but we will do what we need to make sure that the therapy services or the itinerant special education is able to be delivered in that virtual environment.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome.
All right, thank you very much. So at this time, we're going to turn things over to Dr. Williams, Chief Operations Officer.
Yes. Good evening, Madam Chair and Madam Vice Chair, Dr. Felder, board members, and all in attendance. For the operations side slide, I will present to you Mr. Nick Mincy, who will share with you the capital and summer projects updates and information.
Good evening, everybody. Wanted to bring you some updates on some projects that we are virtually we have been building physically. Tonight, there's 4 projects that are listed on the slide that you see before you. Cameron Park, we'll start there. Cameron Park is a huge project for us this year, $2 million construction project. That project is for architectural upgrades and predominantly for mechanical upgrades. The project includes things like new classroom, air conditioning units, new units for the office area, and a massive kitchen improvement, which includes new supply water lines, new sanitary sewer, multiple new items for the kitchen service for kitchen staff, and multiple renovations to that area. And I'm pleased to say that Debbie Tant is very tickled over there. She is actually going to have air conditioning in her kitchen for the first time. So we're glad for that for her and her staff. We also have high energy efficiency windows going in. We have new siding going on the outside of the building. We have new LED lighting that is occupancy activated and also dimmer controlled. And we also are in the process of completing the new vestibule for security. So it's been quite the summer there. I will say that many of the items that we are improving in that facility are original to the building. Cameron Park's first building was built in 1959, and many of the things that we're updating currently are from that original structure, and it's quite the process. So I will say this though, COVID has not only plagued us as an educational institution, but it has also plagued us as a construction division as well. COVID delays have affected many of the equipment that are deemed for that project: HVAC, glazing, aluminum storefront framing, electrical panels, many items that have all been affected in the construction marketplace have now come to affect us. We have pushed and pushed and pushed with our contractor and our vendors there. And at this point, not providing any other delays due to COVID, we should have everything to that facility by September 3rd. And the goal is to be complete by the end of September. That, of course, is barring any further delays from any of the material suppliers. So I will say our contractor has worked very diligently there. It has been a massive undertaking. So we're very pleased for this project to happen for the district, and it will be quite the improvement. The second one on the slide is the vestibule project. So far, we are working on 7 of the vestibules for the schools. We did this in 2 different packages. The schools that fall under this work are Cedar Ridge, Gravely Hill, Central Elementary, New Hope Elementary, Orange High School, Stanford, and Standback. And these projects basically are to provide a secure entrance vestibule for our visitors to come into our campus. We're providing typically a locked area at the front of the school. So when a visitor comes in, they can't just progress right into the main part of the building. They have to be entered in through the front office and met by the staff, and then determine where they need to go for the rest of their visit. These schools are all underway right now. We have only had a couple of small delays due to COVID affected materials here. That's some of the doors that go on some of these buildings, and we're working through that with vendors to put temporary enclosures in place, whatever it takes to keep our buildings safe and secure. So once again, this project's moving forward. Our third item on the list tonight is roofs. As many of you know, we have been doing a lot of roof work over the last 4 years. We work with a designer, REI, and they once again have prepared building packages for us this summer. And all those have been bid and awarded, and Bar Roofing and Construction actually will be starting this week at AL Standback, and then quickly into Central Elementary and then Grady Brown. They actually, to streamline this process, they are bringing complete independent crews, and we'll push this work as fast as possible. This will not take long. We should be basically done by the time school projected start in October. That would be barring weather. After I watch WRAL, they keep telling me we're going to have a lot of hurricanes. I hope they're completely wrong. So the last one on the list for tonight is Cedar Ridge. Cedar Ridge is, of course, our classroom expansion. It's about a $12.5 million construction project. The vendor there is American South. They've been an excellent contractor to work with. We are well on track for completion in November. There are a few days that will probably be allowed for weather if the contractor needs them. At this point, we're going to be right on schedule. So we're very excited for this one to come to completion. It's going to be a real asset to our schools and to our community. It has just some really amazing features. Once it's available to be seen, you guys will not believe the Learning Commons section in this building is just phenomenal. It will be a real showplace for our county and for our school system. So if there are any questions, that's the main projects for right now. I will let you know that we have about 25 other projects going right now, not to slight the geothermal work at Orange High School, which is huge. We've had a very successful summer there and are continuing to work and continuing to push ahead. And then many other small projects throughout the district. So if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mincy.
Oh.
Anyone? All right.
Sarah Pitts is after me.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Williams.
Good evening, everyone. The health and safety of our staff and students continues to be a top priority in our schools. To ensure that we are ready for a safe and healthy return of some of our district and schools-based staff, the following hazard will occur. Due to several areas within the buildings being closed since the end of March, district-wide water sampling and testing has occurred to ensure that our drinking water and equipment are compliant with EPA recommendations. Water lines will also be flushed prior to the arrival of staff this week. Reduced occupancy loads in the building can tax our HVAC systems. So to ensure that our indoor air quality is optimal, air sampling will occur district-wide in all of our buildings prior to the students returning. When staff arrive to their sites daily, they will be required to enter through a designated door, which will be designated by the site administrator for their temperature check. Staff will complete the symptom screening attestation form prior to arriving on site. A trained staff member, donned with the proper PPE, will conduct the temperature screening of all staff members entering buildings. Those employees who are symptom-free will be permitted to enter the building and work in their designated location. All staff members will be required to wear masks. A pack of 5 will be provided to each staff member upon their return. They will also be encouraged to social distance and practice good hand hygiene. To protect the health and safety of our staff working on site, visitors will be limited to only essential visitors who must be on site to complete their scheduled work or who cannot conduct business virtually. Visitors are required to have an appointment, and it will be recommended that they wait in their car until their appointment time. Daily cleaning and disinfection, along with increased disinfection of high traffic areas, will occur throughout the building. Additional staff members will be reassigned to complete this task and to respond to the increased demand. And I believe staff spoke about that earlier in the presentation. In order to ensure necessary areas are cleaned and disinfected as needed, it is critical to limit the activity and ensure that a schedule of building operation is provided to the custodians and operations department. So we'll be working with each site administrator to ensure that that occurs. OCS will continually work with site administrators and monitor the return of staff to ensure that our readiness and safety protocols and procedures are on par and that they're adjusted as needed to ensure that our staff remain safe and healthy while in our district buildings. So are there any questions for me tonight?
Okay, well, you can, okay, I'm sorry.
I was having a mouse issue. My mouse disappeared and I couldn't.
It's okay.
Carry on, Mr. Atherton.
Thank you, Hillary. So Sarah, just a quick question and maybe a follow-up to the question is, has these procedures been shared with the PTAs? I know as being a parent in the schools, I'm seeing PTAs talking about, hey, let's have a welcome breakfast and, you know, all of these things that PTAs normally do to support our staff and, you know, be engaged and help out. You know, when you went through essential visitors, I was like, ooh, you know, have we shared that with the PTAs so they know these kind of things and worked with the principals on what we can and can't do as, you know, those engagements?
Yes, sir. We've had multiple meetings with principals to talk about what safety practices can occur on campuses. We also have the information, I believe, on our website. And if it has not been shared with the PTAs, we will definitely be more than happy to share that information with them to make sure everyone is safe.
Yes, let's please do that second one because I think it's so critical, especially right now, you know, because we want to support the teachers and all the staff just as long as everybody knows the rules. So thank you so much, Sarah.
Absolutely. We'll follow right up with that.
Ms. Hauser.
So I just, you know, air quality in our buildings has been a subject of controversy for some time. And I was wondering if we're doing any pre-testing. Are we opening up any of the buildings in advance to, and are we running any pre-testing of these buildings to see that air quality is okay?
We have not yet, but it is not typical season yet. It typically benefits us to run our indoor air quality testing about the time that our fall particles hit the highest. That way we can ensure that they are, all of our spaces are optimal for students and staff. All of our buildings have been open and the custodians have been walking through and checking all of the spaces to ensure that we don't have any water intrusion and that there are no other issues going on. So we have not conducted yet, but I have not received any complaints lately. We did have one earlier this month that is being remediated right now. Not any other concerns. So we'll be working with Dr. Curcio and the Solutions Group to make sure that we can get that done within the next month.
Super, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pitts.
Okay, if there are no other questions for me, I will turn the mic over to Dr. Williams, who will discuss the the back to school feeding program.
Okay, so back again. We would like to present to you a background for 3 different options for your consideration this evening. Understanding that the DPI waiver was not approved, which would allow us to continue to provide transportation using our yellow buses to transport food once we start school. We're utilizing the K-12 payment center for all three options. And the verification will be required using that particular payment center using barcodes. So that's just the background for where we're going here tonight. So meals effective August 17. PRC 056 funds cannot be used, nor can we do any ABC transfer funds from transportation for the purpose of using and taking care of the salaries and the fuel for yellow buses. So state transportation funds provide funding for all the transportation expenses for yellow buses. Is used for eligible school age K-12 students for travel to and from school and between schools. Therefore, the state we cannot utilize those funds for this effort of transferring food once we open on the 17th. State transportation funding flexibility expired the 30th of June, 2020. And so therefore, we are pursuing utilizing school nutritional sources, which total $201.8 thousand. Next slide, please. Okay, so with these options that we're presenting to you tonight, we have Ms. Cantina from transportation and Larry with us from transportation who can chime in and we can all have this conversation. But option one tells us that we could continue delivery to the current 10 summer feeding sites. Salary and benefits for 20 student transporters. These are individuals who work with transportation to transport the food. It would total $71,103 for the first 9 weeks of school. The bus fuel usage will be for 10 buses. The cost factor is $25,272 for fuel. Now that is option one for the first 9 weeks. Option two, we will deliver meals running every route. The salary and benefits for 52 student transporters and 9 safety assistants totals $319,828 for the first 9 weeks. The bus usage for fuel for 52 buses, it will be a total of 165,323 miles for those 9 weeks, with total $3,096 $775,000 for that usage. Now, state transportation funding cannot be utilized for options 1 or 2. That fund, the funding source would have to come from local funds that would be required to do that. And those are options 1 and 2. Option 3 goes into preparing meals at 4 school locations for distribution at 6 to 8 school locations. Families can pick up their meals for all of their students at one site. After 1 week, meals can be picked up 2 to 3 days at a time. There's no new costs for salaries and benefits and bus usage and fuel utilizing option number 3. And I'll pause there to see if I missed anything. Cantina or Larry or Rhonda was on our team for planning. So if there's any other comment or anything I missed, I appreciate if you would chime in on that.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. I would just like to chime in with regards to provide just a little bit more clarity with regards to option 3, the 6 to 8 schools. And Dr. Williams, please correct me if I'm wrong. So if you're wondering, well, why not at all 13 schools? My understanding is that 4 schools, 2 out of 4 schools, due to construction, we won't be able to serve food or distribute food at 2 school sites, and at another 2 school sites, we have a shortage of staff in child nutrition services. So that's why it's 6 to 8 schools and not all 13.
That is correct.
Yeah, just wanted to bring that. Board members, do you have any questions? Because we need your decision making with regards to what option you would like for us to proceed with. As you can see, 2 of them, option 1 and 2. There are costs involved there that would come out of our local funding sources. And we just need to get your direction.
Ms. Smiley?
Thank you for this information. I know that some of our summer feeding locations, I believe, have been at apartment complexes and or mobile home parks, places like that, not at school buildings. Is that right?
That is correct. Some of the parents did pick up at the locations of schools. Otherwise, we were delivering at some of the other sites in the community.
So I think, you know, my concern about going with option 3 is understanding how many families would have difficulty with that transportation to go to the school site to get the meals. So I think understanding more about how many meals we've been distributing at the summer feeding locations, how many students and families are we talking about here who might be impacted if we were to remove those feeding locations. And I also saw some stuff on Facebook about extra meals in some of the sites. And so just trying to understand the level of demand and how that would sync up with if we were to potentially do option 3.
Right. Thank you. Tina, if you or Larry are on the line, can you chime in on that?
Dr. Williams, this is Tina. That may be more of a Sarah Pitts because she works more with Margie. I'm not sure exactly how many meals they pass out a day. Sarah, do you know that information?
I do. Today we did 1,575 meals, and we've been averaging a little over 1,500 a day. But again, those were free of charge. So any child under the age of 18 who showed up to the site was given a meal. So we are currently not confident on numbers when we have to start charging parents and have to pay partial based on their free and reduced or full payment status.
Ms. Hauser?
I have a kind of a similar question and that's who are we feeding? You know, is it the free and reduced lunch students, or is it the assumption that we're going to feed everybody and people are going to pay for it? And do we know what people want and need? And then the second question is, what about the supervised learning labs? And will we bring food to them?
So when we transition from the summer feeding program back to the National School Lunch, yes, it will only be our students that we will be feeding. They will have to show some type of verification. And I am not privy if there was a survey done to whether or not our families said they would show up to the feeding sites if they wanted to pay. So that may be something that we need to ask, and we could definitely follow up with that. And there have been a couple of meetings regarding the supervised learning labs. I met with Mr. Lewis today and the YMCA, and they are unclear right now as to whether or not they would request their students to bring lunches or whether they would ask us to provide. But I do know that when we look at transitioning to the supervised learning labs, that will be ran by our school staff. It has been mentioned that we would be providing those lunches to students.
Thank you.
Ms. Stevens, then Ms. Smiley.
All right, so my question is for Dr. Williams. You all are the experts. So what option do you all as professionals recommend to us?
Well, options 1 and 2 is a cost factor. So that would be incumbent upon the board to determine which that you would want to dive into. Option 3, there is no new cost of salary benefits that would benefit from that. We're paying them anyway, so there's no cost for that. For the purpose of ensuring that all students, free and reduced, who may not have opportunity to come pick up food that we deliver, that's going to be a concern, but I don't know how much of a concern, because as Sarah indicated, we did not do a survey to find out how many parents can actually come and get the food altogether, or do we need to run to some capacity? And if so, there's a cost factor that we have to consider.
Okay. So again, what is your 1, 2, or 3 in a perfect world? What would staff recommend? What do you recommend?
If you're looking at cutting costs and not having to pay additional funds, option 3, of course, is the best option. The other 2 options will be a cost factor. 1 will be lesser than 2. 2 will really get into the weeds of funds. And option 2 doesn't even speak to the cost that it will be for child nutrition persons. That cost will be an estimated of about $581,000 per month. So it's a very expensive cost factor.
So thank you so much, Dr. Williams, and thank you, Mrs. Stevens, for your question. In a perfect world, option 2 would be great, right? Where we can put our buses out and have them run the routes, and the children come to the bus stops that they are familiar with and will be using once we get to Plan B. But as Dr. Williams said, it's so cost prohibitive. I don't know that if it's feasible. However, with regards to option 3, what brings me comfort anyway is knowing that if there are families that are unable to, a couple of things bring me comfort with number 3, option 3, and that is knowing that if, well, first of all, that families can pick up more than 1 meal at a time, right, after the first week. And so they don't have to come out every single day. They can get 2 to 3 meals at a time. Also knowing that they can pick up for all of their children at one site. If they have children at 3 different schools, they don't have to go to each school to pick up lunch. But we also talked about this today in extended cabinet, and Sharita Cobb, Ms. Cobb, as you know, is a director for student services, assured us that the same work that the social workers and counselors have always been engaged in terms of meeting the needs of families, particularly during the pandemic, and ensuring there's food. If there are families that are struggling to, or would struggle to pick up the food, food would be brought to them. And so again, that would, those are my thoughts with regards to options 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you.
Ms. Smiley and Ms. Doyle, did you both have comments?
Yes, briefly. Option 2, I really wish we could do the buses, but the costs are huge, especially if we, God forbid, are closed for more than the 9 weeks. A couple of, just one question to understand option 1 and 2, and anything sort of in the middle, option Z. The bus efficiency ratings, would those be affected by us using them for things other than student transportation? Do we know? Has the state said anything about that lately?
Hey, Ms. Smiley, per Kevin Harrison, the DPI transportation section chief, due to what's going on with COVID-19, he has assured us that the efficiency rating for the upcoming school year and possibly the year following that, the efficiency rating shouldn't be affected because of what's going on.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you, Ms. McCulley. And
You're
so
welcome.
That's great. I guess there are two thoughts that I would offer. One is I feel like I've seen some districts in North Carolina who have figured out how to provide a family with an entire week of meals. And so I will see if I can dig up what article I saw to see which district so we can figure out how we might be able to do that, because I think the fewer times we get people to come out, the better. The other thought I had was whether there's a way for us to more systematically understand what the social workers know about the families who can't get there. And maybe it's not, you know, the 10 buses that are needed. It literally, like, maybe it's one or two who like know which families just cannot get there at all, and can figure out something. So I would just offer those two ideas as things I hope we will explore to figure this out.
Ms. Doyle?
I had some similar thoughts to Ms. Smiley, and I'm wondering, I'm thinking that families with elementary school kids would have an adult at home. That adult might not have a vehicle for driving places, but a portion of them would. And I'm thinking, you know, high school students don't require having an adult at home. And so I could imagine that there would be middle and high school students who, you know, whose parents are at work, but they don't have transportation. So I'm just imagining that there are families, as Ms. Smiley is saying, who just legitimately can't get to these places, but that other people could. And so I'm wondering also if there's a way to, I'm curious about the numbers. I'm curious about the age distribution of families. I do know that, am I correct? I know this is happening in Durham, and I think it's connected to the schools. There's like a volunteer, because people at my church are doing it, delivering food weekly on Wednesdays. I mean, I'm just wondering what we can do to support families where it's just really difficult to get to the lunches.
So my thoughts are sort of along the same lines, whereas I'm open to there being some sort of foundation of option 3 where we have some school locations where there are pickups, but I really just feel like we have to understand what the needs are of our families that won't work for. So Dr. Felder, I guess this is a question for you of how we can move forward sort of with that kind of hybrid possibility, if that's sort of the tone I'm getting from the board. Is there a world where we can sort of have these school locations, but also quickly survey our families and come up with a possibility of at least a bus or two that is running routes for the families who need it the most?
Sure, we can certainly do a survey. I wouldn't say it will be quick, only because some of the families that we really need to hear from don't respond to surveys. And so it will take some outreach to contact them, but we can certainly do that. And we will seek to do that this week as school starts next week. And we will just need to have a plan in place. So yes, we can do that. So how would you like for us to proceed in terms of providing you with the outcome? Am I hearing that the decision will rest on what we find out, what we learn from our families, or and if so, how would you like to proceed with getting the information to the full board in order to make a decision?
Do any board members have any initial thoughts on that? Mr. Atherton?
So I agree. It feels like we're all talking about option 3 with some version of an option 4 that says, here's these families that don't have the ability to get the food. And maybe to even take that a step further is to Ms. Smiley's point, is maybe those bus deliveries are a week's worth of food, not a day, right? So then that would reduce the cost even more if we could get that. And then the other thought I had was, is there ability to the county to help us with, transportation or fuel or other things? I mean, this is a huge need in our community right now with food insecurity, especially with everything else and job losses and, et cetera. Because I know our original number was 40% free and reduced as a district. I'm not convinced that's still the same number. I think that number has increased. So that's just my feeling, is I think we're all saying option 3 plus looking at, transportation and augmenting with longer durations to help reduce that cost. But that would be my recommendation, is go with a hybrid 3 option and let the district come back if there's changes needed beyond that.
Might I ask Sarah Pitts and Sharita Cobb to chime in, because I think, Sarah, if you have any information to share with regards to providing 5 days worth of meals. I know that we discussed that. I'm just not recalling what the specifics were. So if you could provide information about that now, that would be helpful. And then Sharita Cobb, if you could speak to how we met the needs, particularly since March, in meeting the needs, because even with the 10 feeding sites that we have still delivered food to families that were not able to go to those sites. So could both of you weigh in here, share what you know? Thank you.
Absolutely, Dr. Felder. Right now, we're currently utilizing a group called Compass to provide 3-day meal boxes for families over the weekend. So they get a Friday, a Saturday, a Sunday meal. Now, when we go to the National School Lunch Program, we will not be able to do weekend feeding, but we can look at that company to see if they would be able to provide a 5-day box. I know that Ms. Davidson, the interim child nutrition director, is looking at that right now to determine how her staff could do that and order everything ahead of time. So we are already comparing costs to make sure that we would be able to provide that service, and we can get more details as soon as we have those numbers.
Thank you. So, Dr. Felder, this is Sharita Cobb. Good evening, board members and board chair and vice chair. What the social workers did throughout the summer months since March was we provided an supplemental food box that was supplemental to the school lunches, and we took those out to a few of the distribution sites, but we did go to a couple of places where there were no distribution sites happening, and we recognized that there were some families that maybe could not make it out. We worked really hard with Sarah and transportation to locate the areas where families were and send buses to those areas. Now, those supplemental boxes, we did between 35 and 40, maybe up to 50 at some points a week. But again, those were supplemental food boxes that went to anyone that came out to those spots where we were. I mean, we went to the community and had one location, so we weren't going door to door. But that is what we have done. I will have the social workers to investigate the families that they know, and I don't know what that number is going to look like. I don't think it's going to be a low number when we talk about families that are going to need some help getting to a location, especially if we're talking about cutting those locations back to 4 spaces, because the social workers are mainly giving food boxes like a week at a time to families that can't make it out to schools to pick up that food box. But we would have to really do some investigation. But I've already sent an email to the lead asking if she would start looking into that for us.
Thank you, Ms. Cobb. So maybe Ms. Hauser.
I just have a couple of, but I still am a little confused as to whether we're feeding all the students or just the free and reduced lunch students. But the other thing, and this is responding to Ms. Cobb's comment, is if we did I'm just being hypothetical here, but if we moved option 1 to a 2 or 3 times a week, that cuts the costs in a half or by 2/3. Is that correct? So if we wanted to continue, at least until we get the surveys back and know what we really want to do, that we could possibly do a hybrid of option 3 with option 1, and it would cost a lot less money. Is that until we figure out who we're feeding and where they want to go?
So right now, I can say that, and Sarah, you back me up, we are feeding any children. It's not free and reduced lunch students that we're feeding right now. We're feeding all children in Orange County schools that come out and get the lunch. So it's not specifically free and or reduced lunch students that we are providing the lunches to at this time.
That's
that
correct.
Number will look drastically different.
Well, that's kind of the question, right?
Yes,
So
and then
with
when we start the feeding program for the school year, it will be any student who shows up to purchase a lunch, whether it be free, reduced, or paid, will provide to anyone who is there.
And just, if I may, just a point of clarification, that's so that we can't give free meals to everybody at that point because that federal provision has expired and has not been renewed. Another that has expired and not been renewed, I think, is the one where people who are not family members can pick up the food and deliver it. I believe, last I heard, that means that volunteers, for example, might not be able to be delivering it. Is that accurate?
Ms. Pitts, are you saying that is accurate?
That provision I am not confident about. I would have to do some research in that, but there does, it provides some complications if we're providing meals for a volunteer to drive to someone's house that a particular family has paid for. So there are some challenges that would arise with that, but I will look into that provision that you spoke of, Ms. Smiley.
Okay, thank you.
If I may interject, I believe that is correct, that there is a waiver to allow parents to pick up meals for their children, but not family members.
Yikes. That's disappointing. So what do you think, team? Is there a reason to not go with option 3 since there isn't a big cost to the district and pursue some form of option 1? I mean, is that asking too much, Dr. Felder? Does that make sense? We start with option 3. We talk to the social workers and the principals and try to come up quickly, well, as quickly as feasible, with more information about option 1 and whether we would do that also, or is it situation?
No, I definitely don't think it's an either or situation. And just know that any of these are, all 3 of them, if we could do them all at once, that's not, the lift is not the issue. It's the money. And so sure. If the board were to say go with option 2, we'd make it happen.
Have the money.
Yeah.
So let's say this, unless it's if it's the pleasure of the board, we start up with option 3, and Dr. Felder and staff provide us with information as soon as they're able, and we can make a determination of whether we'll expand to include some buses that make some rounds and deliver food also. Thoughts? Ms. Smiley?
Yes, I like that idea. And I think one of the opportunities here when we're publicizing that change is to say, And if you have real challenge, if that's impossible for you, please reach out to your school social worker, something as part of our sort of like information gathering.
I mean, it seems like we will touch most parents in the coming week because we have back to school and open houses. So it feels like we have an opportunity to disseminate that and ask people to contact social workers, as soon as possible. Mr. Atherton?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, is it possible to include in the distribution the Welcome Center as well? I know it says the 6 to 8 school locations. I know it's prepped at 4 and then distributed at 6 to 8 locations, but is it possible to include the Welcome Center? I know the Welcome Center has been used for other distributions. I just want to make sure we're giving, as many options as possible that the district has access to. Would there be a challenge with that?
I'm going to ask Dr. Williams to speak to that.
Yeah.
I do know that the YMCA, you will hear that in the next part of the presentation for phase 1 of the supervised learning labs. I believe we'll be using the Welcome Center. So I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Dr. Williams, can you shed any light on?
Yes, ma'am.
Something we can certainly look into if nothing else, but go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. You're absolutely right. You will hear at the next presenter with the learning labs that there's a discussion with the YMCA to utilize the Welcome Center gym area where we probably would be using that facility to distribute foods or the meals. Outside of that, I'm not certain how that could work, particularly at that site, at that particular building.
But Mr. Atherton, we can explore it. So,
okay,
because you never know, we may be able to do both.
That's great, because I know a lot of people know where it is. We have staff that's there all day, but whatever we can do. So Hillary, I'm willing to make a motion for option 3 with an investigation for additional buses at a later time. I don't know.
Okay, I've got your motion, but I'm going to let Ms. Doyle speak and then I'll see if we have a second.
Sorry.
Ms. Doyle?
I was wondering if there might be reasons why it doesn't, to continue with option 1, basically what we're doing for another week or 2. If it's difficult to access families who are needing the food, would it be easier to communicate with people at those current feeding locations? And so have this continuation in place for a week or 2 and pursue finding out that way if they'd be able to get to the other sites.
Dr. Felder, do you have thoughts about that?
So my only concern there, Ms. Doyle, would be around just another change for families. So we start off one way and then needing to change how they get their food, and just given all everything is new in this space that we're in right now. We're just looking to bring a little consistency. But, that's my only thought around. Great idea. I just would think we would have to switch it up possibly after 2 weeks and another change, another location. Yeah.
So there is a motion on the table.
Hillary, can I just make a?
Yes, but I do want to just try to wrap this up because we do have a lot more business and it's 9:40. So if we can just try to do it quickly.
Then I can make it as an amendment maybe to the, I might want to support what Carrie's saying. People are used to this way now, so we would be continuing to do what they're used to. But the thing that the 10 summer sites have that the school locations don't have is some of them are remote. So how do we get a site up in Cedar Grove? How do we get a site up in Sly? How do we get a site? Is it possible to get a site in some remote locations that makes the transportation for our parents a little bit easier? So that's my concern with option 3. It's too centralized.
Well, the motion was with looking at how we would provide bus or other options to meet those needs.
So is there a second?
I second that motion. This is Brenda.
I have a motion from Mr. Atherton and a second from Ms. Stevens. Ms. Smiley?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
I will vote yes. Ms. Hauser?
Yes.
Ms. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Atherton?
Yes.
And I think that is, did I say Ms. Stevens already? No, you were the second. So you,
Yes.
Ms. Stevens? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Then we will go with Mr. Atherton's original motion, and we will start with option 3 and explore expanding that into option 1 as quickly as staff is able to provide the board with that information. And Dr. Felder, you and I can kind of coordinate in whatever way I can be helpful with working between staff and the board. Okay, great.
Thank you.
So now we can move to the next presenter, please.
Thank you all. So next presenter will be Mrs. Melanie Stowe, our Public Information Officer.
Good evening, Madam Chair McKenzie, Madam Vice Chair Stevens, and board members. The needs of our families continue to drive the work of the Communications and Community Engagement Department. This includes our school community relations team, which was driven previously by our before and after school programming. And like all departments, we have had to adjust the model to focus on safety and meet the unprecedented needs of our students and families. Working parents with school-age children are faced with the challenge of how to ensure their children are in a safe learning setting while they work. And this is even more daunting for families with low incomes, families who face greater health risk, and families who face inequities in access to educational and health resources, as well as employment options. Supervised learning labs is the new necessary model for our before and after school programming while we are in Plan C, remote learning. The 3 priorities of supervised learning labs are to support our families' financial security so that they can go to work, to provide a safe in-person option for students and support the students' educational and academic success, and for us to prepare for Plan B. We have consulted with the Orange County Health Department. They are supportive of Supervised Learning Lab, but they have advised us that we start slow and that we start with small groups and we phase these opportunities in. We certainly don't want to rush any training or practice. We have partnered with the YMCA Chapel Hill Carborough going on 6 years, and they started offering supervised programming to essential workers, children in March. To date, they have approximately 2,000 students every day in their summer camps. We know that we need an option for our working families right now, and we want to propose or share this opportunity with you so that we can learn from the YMCA's successful experience as we prepare for Plan B. And this would also prepare us, as you'll see on the next slide, for Phase 2 and Phase 3. Phase 1 would be a partnership with the YMCA. The potential location is the Welcome Center gym. We have a few logistical things to work out, but they have toured that and love the facility. This would serve 50 students in K through 8. The start date would be the 24th. That's not the first day of school because the Y wants families and students to engage with teachers, to learn how to use the technology, to get the correct logon, passwords, and figure all that out so that they aren't dependent upon the Y, but that the Y can support their efforts. The hours, there are 2 different tracks. All-day program is $197 a week. The academic program only, which would be the school day from 8 to 3, is $120 a week. For the Phase 1, the YMCA has reduced the rate for all families and OCS staff to $120 for the academic programming. In addition, the YMCA Financial Assistance Program is open to whomever applies and is based on a sliding scale, and the amount determined is based on the family's financial need. The YMCA is actively fundraising now to cover the portions of costs for those needing scholarships. And we would work together to ensure that the students receiving aid meet the criteria that I previously mentioned. I do have Ms. Kim Grooms, the Executive Director of YMCA Chapel Hill Carbo, on the call in the event you have any questions specifically for her with regards to their success for the past several months. And we are certainly really grateful for her team's willingness to participate with us and work with us on this endeavor.
Mr. Atherton?
Yes, so one of the questions I have is, I see it says up to 50. What's the ratio of students to staff, right? And you know, obviously to me, there's a difference between saying have 50 elementary students versus, you know, 50 middle schools. You know, I don't imagine high schools would use this unless they have connectivity issues or things like that. But can you give us an idea of how those ratios are determined?
I can, but I'm also going to let Ms. Grooms provide that.
Sure, thanks. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. To answer your question, we are focused on a 1-to-10 ratio. And we will, that's why the space when we visited the Welcome Center was appealing because of the classroom space and really being able to put students in groups of 10. And that's what we'll focus on.
And would that be the same for doing outside activities that you would have, you know, them, you know, the group being assigned in groups of 10 where they would go out to make sure, you know, I've seen these pictures of where everybody gets shoved up at the exit, you know, and all of a sudden you're 6 foot out the door, you know, because people are excited about going, you know, is that how y'all would manage this, or other ideas on how y'all would manage going in the building, out of the building for other activities?
Yes, it's going to be, you know, kind of determined by the kids' schedule. Having a group of K through 8, right? All of their schedules could be different. They could have breaks at different times. But basically what we would do is keep groups of 10. And in those 10, when they are, say they're lined up to go out, you know, it's the 6 feet apart. We usually, at the Y, currently, we identify markings on the floor, have kids stand on the markings on the floor and walk through that process with them. But we try to keep small group activities. We try to keep the same groups of kids together all at the same time.
Okay, and the last question I have is, as y'all are putting this together, and you know, we have a lot of different needs, would you be able to accommodate special needs?
We have in our summer camps and all of our programs, we have been able to accommodate special needs. It's kind of a, you know, a one-on-one sort of situation. We'd have to take that as, you know, an understanding of what the needs are, understanding of, you know, what the requirements might be. But those are things we would take on a case-by-case basis.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other questions from the board? Ms. Smiley?
I think one of them you answered, which I've been in that gym and it didn't seem big enough for 50 people with distancing, but it sounds like we'd also be using the classroom spaces in the building. I see you nodding, Ms. Grooms. Okay, great. The other question I have is, what is the process for identifying which students can do the program if there's more interest than slots, which I think is a possibility? You know, my hope would be that our students of highest need would be sort of prioritized, but I don't know if there's any sort of process with that.
Right. And so as Ms. Stowe mentioned, we are, you know, going to do, it's a fee-based program, and then the sliding scale program would determine, you know, who would qualify and what they would qualify. We could work with the staff to identify kids that would need it the most and work through that process as well. You know, I'd love to say we could do the entire program for all of our kids that needed us. Unfortunately, we're not in a position to do that. But we could work with the staff to identify the students.
Thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other questions? Thank you so much, Ms. Grooms, for being here and sharing this information. Thank you, Ms. Stowe.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Ms. Grooms. And I will add, Ms. Smiley, that we do have a communication going out tomorrow to all families, and it will advertise this option in addition to some more I'm going to share, and also options across the county that are currently available. While we're going to a disclaimer that we're not necessarily promoting them, but we want families to know every option available to them, because we know 50 spots is not going to meet the need. 100 spots may not fit the need. And so we want to help connect them to those resources.
And Ms. Stowe, one more thing, as far as the number, I mean, after viewing the space today, I mean, there is a potential to increase that number based on, you know, the rooms that we would get, or, you know, the gym. We actually started out saying the gym, but the classrooms were more appealing to us and keeping pods of 10. But then, you know, utilizing the gym as well as an option. We're doing that at the Chapel Hill Y. We're utilizing our gymnasium there. So we could potentially look at more. Also, as families drive in to Chapel Hill or Durham or other areas, there are lots of these, we're calling them scholastic support centers all across our 7 counties. And so there are options in other locations as well. That helpful?
Oh, Mr. Atherton?
Yeah, just one more follow-up question, as other board members have asked questions, was, does this 120 include any of the PPE required for the students, or is the district going to provide that? Or, you know, given this will not be a normal situation, and we'll have, you know, entrance and thermal checks and all that, but kind of the PPE equipment that will be needed there, will the district have enough to do that, or is it being provided by the YMCA? Where's that partnership at?
So I'll just address the partnership is, we need this for our families and they need this. And so we are working with the YMCA to leverage all of our resources, whether that be meals, furniture, the space, custodial support. And again, it's for us to prepare for Plan B. So we're working closely with Ms. Pitts, Dr. Williams, other departments to leverage those, because these are our students. These are our students. So any resource that would be available to them for the school year would certainly, under Plan B, would be available to them for Plan C, remote, when they're on site with us.
So we will have student size masks.
Correct.
Okay. I knew we had some issues acquiring those, so we have gotten those.
I don't have the delivery at my table right now. So.
No. I mean, the 24th is pretty quick. So.
Yeah, and we are. This is a turnaround because it seems to be ever changing. But yes, we are working closely with Dr. Williams, Ms. Pitts, and the YMCA to ensure we have everything that we need in place. We will not proceed if anything's missing, but right now we feel confident that we can do more.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Any other comments? Okay.
Thank you so much, Ms. Grooms. We're not going to call on you anymore, so you can have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So on the next slide, I have detailed for you phases 2 and 3. And so in order to follow the Orange County Health Department's guidelines and starting small and slowly, we will utilize multiple criteria and a sliding scale to determine the students to fill all of these spots, because these are our spots, and in phases 2 and 3. The criteria would include meeting the needs of working families, providing academic supervision and assistance to families who express need, families without internet access, families with exceptional children. And we are, Mr. Atherton, working closely with Ms. Cummins on this as well. Families who receive DSS subsidies, and input from our school social workers and counselors is going to be critical in this process as well. Phase 2, offsite locations includes, well, I have those listed, and I know that several of you, first of all, thank you, because some of you have expressed and shared ideas and made connections to sites. There are a number of factors that go into selecting sites, and these are potential not ironed these out, but in touring them and speaking with leadership, that these are our best options to get a supervised learning lab off-site up by 31st of August, 1st September. And we will also follow the rates that the YMCA has set. But again, we will have those options as families apply to look at different variables that they have and ensure that we are being equitable and the cost per family. Phase 3, those are on-site locations. And these include schools, and the dates that we're targeting would be September 21st through October 5th. This will be a week after you hear the first report from the OCS COVID metrics task force. And we are hopeful that we hear encouraging news, and that we feel encouraged to proceed with phase 3 opportunities and bring students on site. And this would be up to 30 per site. And again, we would start small and phase those in.
I wanted to ask one question about using school sites for our learning labs. I know that some of our teachers are going to be teaching remotely in their classrooms. And so I just have a curiosity around how the classrooms will be chosen and whether we will take into account the teachers that are using their classroom spaces to teach virtually, and just to make sure we're coordinating so that if a teacher really needs their space, we can work with the teachers who are comfortable teaching from home in order to put students in there first.
Yes, we've talked about that. That's one reason that these schools were selected, because we know we have clear entrance, clear exits, that the construction going on will not interfere. And yes, these are our students, and our staff will be running these. And we want our staff who are in the buildings by choice to deliver remote instruction, administration, we want everyone safe. So we will definitely ensure that. And part of our safety guidelines too is, again, with the tracing of where we are. And so the goal is not to intermingle, go into a cafeteria, go into multiple classrooms. We will follow all the guidelines set out by the state, by our local and state health departments, as well as our district guidelines to ensure the safety of everyone. And that includes staff on site for remote learning.
Okay, I'm going to follow up with you later just to make sure that I express myself well, but thank you. That's helpful.
Hillary, do you need a motion to extend the meeting?
Yes, we do.
I do.
Okay, how much time do we think we need? I know we have some time on this this topic. We have the Title IX policies. I think we have to.
We have to do the Title IX. That can't wait. Dr. Felder, do you have a preference to what else we focus on this evening? Do you think we should finish this and do Title IX and push the other things until a later meeting? Do you feel like we need to finish this? Everything on the agenda?
So, well, I think we could abbreviate this presentation. If you wanted to stop here, I could use the board weekly. Was that a yes, Mrs. Stevens? We certainly use the board weekly update to provide an update with regards to the mentoring, the metrics monitoring task force, and the communications, the next slide with regards to communications about the campaign to return to school, the dashboard, and all those other things. So if you're okay with that, we can wrap up the reopening schools part of the presentation. Is that whatever the board would like us to do? I'm happy to do.
My intuition is that there are going to be a lot of people who would like to see the update on metrics. So maybe we could hit that as quickly as possible. And then if you feel like everything could wait, we could make sure this presentation is available on the website for families to peruse if they are interested in those details. And then we can do the Title IX and then adjourn. Does that work for everyone?
Okay, so I'll make a motion to extend to 10:15.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Smiley to extend till 10:15 and a second from Ms. Stevens. Mr. Atherton?
Yes.
Ms. Doyle?
Yes.
Ms. Hauser?
Yes.
Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Smiley?
Yes, but again, I have a list of questions and we have to figure out a way to do this faster so that we can ask our questions in future meetings.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
I vote yes as well, so we have until 10:15. Oh, Mr. Atherton?
I do have one question. I apologize. The slide that's being shown, Stowe shows 197 per week, and ours and our packet shows 120, which matches the YMCA. I just want to confirm that the number is 120.
So the number is 197, and I apologize what you received. There was an update today in communicating with the Y. The 120 is for the academic 8 to 3, not all day, 7:30 to 6:30.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for the clarity. I just want to make sure as we're talking to people, we can explain this. Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Smiley?
Yeah, quick. Okay, so the start date, the range here is you're targeting a start date somewhere in that range. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's to allow us to get the first phase up and running, which we're very confident about that because they have the experience. And then for us to be able to adequately train and model them and see how they facilitate. And so we can implement those best practices.
That's great. I think that phased approach is great.
Ms. Doyle? And then Ms. Hauser, but you guys, we've really got to keep moving.
My question is, I think this is excellent, and I think it's a ton of work, and I'm wondering if the need is much beyond the 300 kids this could accommodate, that there will be plans to extend.
Thank you, Ms. Doyle. So part of the letter that we're sending out tomorrow to all families includes a quick form of, do you need this? We hear that and we think that and we think we know that, but when it comes down to enrolling your students and choosing those locations, do you need it and which sites best fit your needs? And so we're going to use that to determine if 3 phases works or if we need additional phases. And this is a fluid process, but we will remain slow and strategic for the purpose of safety.
Thank you. Ms. Hauser?
Yeah, we're not providing any transportation to any of these sites, and I can't place all the United Methodist churches. So I wonder, are we making provisions to have sites out in the more rural areas, especially Northern Orange and maybe Southern Orange?
Yes, Ms. Hauser. As I mentioned previously, that some sites are just a great location, great for lots of reasons. We face some challenges with some of the remote locations for a variety of reasons, and we are continuing to look at that. And we are also looking at transportation. We're just not looking at that for phase 1. Not phase 2. So we are also looking into that and working those details out. And that will be part of the form as well for parents and or families. Do you need transportation to these sites?
Thank you, Ms. Stowe. So maybe we can briefly go over an update from the metrics task force. I think we probably have about 5 to 7 minutes for that.
Okay, so then we're going to quickly turn things over to Mr. Jason Johnson. Mr. Johnson, if you would give the board an update on the metrics monitoring task force. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Felder. Good evening, board members. I hope everybody's doing well. At the July 20th board meeting, we had with us Ms. Stewart from the health department. She walked us through the metrics that we should use when trying to determine our return to school under Plan B. When studied over time, these metrics will help us determine when it's safe for students to return to school under Plan B, the hybrid model. The data points that she discussed that night and that we should keep under consideration were the daily case count, which is the number of lab confirmed cases in Orange County, cumulative case count, which is looking at a trend over a 2 to 4 week period, trends in COVID types and trends in types of COVID-like illnesses, such as the flu, and the % of positive tests. She also mentioned other factors impacting Orange County residents and Orange County schools. Those factors were, but not limited to, spikes in COVID-19 cases around holidays, other viral illnesses such as the flu, she mentioned people traveling throughout the county and beyond. She also mentioned college students returning and the community demographics will change. And she mentioned that we have to keep in mind clusters of cases that occur in the county changes often. During that board meeting, she mentioned the importance of us starting a task force to look at the COVID-19 metrics and to render a recommendation to the school board. That night, the board was in agreement of creating a task force of staff and community members. Tonight, I will give you an update on the metrics monitoring task force. We had our first meeting on August 3rd. It was very well attended. We had 29 members in attendance. As stated earlier, the purpose of the task force is to monitor the metrics around COVID-19 over a period of time and make a recommendation to the school board. We have a charge statement that describes the purpose of the task force, but it also goes further in letting task force members and the community know that the task force role is only to recommend and that the task force does not make the final decision about moving from Plan C, remote learning, to Plan B, hybrid learning. The decision to move from Plan C to Plan B will be made by the Orange County School Board. We also discussed what was critical to the quality and success of the task force. It was noted that broad stakeholder representation and engagement was needed. Also, we need to make sure we are transparent of the process, and furthermore, we need to maintain a commitment to our charge statement in order for the task force to be successful. There are 32 committee members on the task force. The task force is made up of 5 parents, which our principals gave us the names of parents that would be good to serve on the committee. We have 2 business representatives on the task force. We worked with Ms. Braxton, and she gave us names from the Business Advisory Committee. At this time, we have 3 community members who reached out and showed some interest. These community members are also parents. I have personally reached out to the Family Success Alliance for 1 additional name to add as a community member. We also have 4 principals on the committee. There are 3 teachers. Of those teachers, we have the Orange County Schools Teacher of the Year and our NCAE president. We have 2 classified staff members and 2 high school students on the task force. We will be adding 1 more high school student from Cedar Ridge High School. We also have 1 school board member, Ms. Smiley, on the task force. And of course, the Orange County Health Department has a representative on the task force as well. At this time, we are not adding any more committee members outside of the ones that I mentioned earlier, but we are creating a wait list for those that are interested, and they will be added to the task force as members decide to step off. The task force committee members understand that this is a year-long commitment or until there's a vaccine or a cure. As long as COVID-19 is active, we will always need to monitor the metrics. The task force meeting calendar aligns with the board meeting dates. The only dates that do not align are with the November 6th task force meeting and the November 23rd board meeting. If a recommendation is needed to be made after the November 6th meeting, we will have to work with the board and superintendent to give the task force the platform to make the recommendation. The task force first recommendation to the Board of Education will be at the September 14th Board of Education meeting. Are there any questions?
I don't see any. Thank you so much, Mr. Johnson, for the update.
You're welcome.
So Dr. Felder, is this the point where you feel like we can move to our Title IX updates?
Yes, Mrs. McKenzie. Thank you.
Okay, then I will turn that over to you or to Mrs. Cunningham Brown, whoever is going to be presenting that.
I believe that's Ms. Cunningham Brown.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so good evening, board members, community, Dr. Felder. I'd like to introduce to you some interim revisions to policy 1710 and 1720 to comply with our new Title IX regulations. I've been working closely with our attorneys with regards to the interim policies. As you know, Title IX is a federal law that prohibits sex discrimination, and sexual harassment in our education programs and activities. The new Title IX regulations are elaborate and was provided to us without adequate time to do a detailed policy revision. We recently received the School Board Association's proposed policies to address the regulations, but there are 6 new revised policies that will require substantial time for staff and the board to review. The district is not in a position to do this important work by the August 14th deadline to implement the new regulations. In addition, our attorneys are carefully monitoring multiple lawsuits that are seeking to stop the regulations from going into effect. Based on the time crunch and the fact that our focus is on the reopening plan and the pending lawsuits, we are proposing interim policies that would put us in compliance on a temporary basis. The policies allow the superintendent to return to our current policies if any of the lawsuits are successful. Again, the time crunch, we are seeking a waiver for second reading. The first policy is policy 710. The changes is to add the new definition under Title IX of sexual harassment. The second policy, 1720, the only change to this policy is the reference that we will follow the new Title IX procedures. We have plans to continue to work with our attorney during this interim period to ensure that we are following all of the new regulations. We are requesting your approval for the interim changes to policies 1710 and 1720 with a waiver of second reading.
So I'll just first say that thank you, Ms. Cunningham-Brown. I appreciate you presenting those. On a personal level, I have a real moral issue with these new definitions, and I think that it loosens the consequences for sexual offenders, and I'm really disturbed by them, but I understand that it's federal law and we could lose federal funding if we don't pass these. And I just felt like I needed to say that, so I will vote in favor of them, but I am not indeed in favor of them at all. Does anyone else have comment?
I agree, and I move that motion.
We have a motion from Ms. Stevens. Is there a second?
Second.
That's a second from Ms. Doyle. Mr. Atherton?
Yes, with the agreement of I don't like the wording of this at all.
Yeah.
Ms. Doyle?
Yes. Yes.
Ms. Hauser?
Yes, same qualification.
I vote yes as well. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Smiley?
Same, yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
It is passed unanimously under protest. I want to just thank everyone for a long meeting and a lot of hard work. I know our staff and our teachers and our principals are working around the clock and absolutely exhausted. And I also know that they will rise and be rock stars next week. So I'm just incredibly impressed with everyone. Thank you so much for your time and energy. And with that, I will take a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Smiley, a second from Ms. Stevens. Mr. Atherton?
Yes.
Ms. Doyle?
Yes.
Ms. Hauser?
Yes.
I vote yes. Ms. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Smiley?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
We are adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks.